before we call the meeting to order, just welcome the public who has dialed in on, we are live streaming and dial into that. And if you're connected, you already know that information. If you're not, you're not going to get it with me, I guess. But we will call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Public forum, does anybody wish to speak at public forum? I don't see anybody. Ryan, we got anybody that's raising their hand electronically?
Not right now.
All right, we'll move on to the agenda. David, we've got some additions.
Mr. Chair, we have two additions to the consent agenda. If we could add consent agenda item number 7.1, promotion of 2 part-time correction officers to full-time status. And then if we could add consent agenda item number 8C, training approval for consideration of any commissioner Association of Minnesota Counties Leadership Summit, March 30th to April 1st.
Okay,
Oh, and then there's a handout on the Central Minnesota EMS as additional information that Commissioner Ludwig will address during his comments.
okay.
I will move as amended.
I will second that.
Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren to adopt agenda as amended. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
For approval of the minutes of March 1st. Summary for publications.
I'll move that. Second.
We got a motion by Moore, second by Waldham. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes, boards, reports, and correspondence. We got the Pine County zoning board minutes of January 27th, 2022, and the land surveyor's monthly report for February of 22.
So moved.
Second.
By Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Looking for approval of the consent agenda. You have that in front of you. If anybody has any questions. Along with the additions that were just mentioned.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda, but I would like to state that just a shout out to Leslie, who worked really hard and got that Blandon grant for $75,000. That's and there's more coming, which is exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Come to it's sad for us because we paid employee having to leave, not having to leave, choosing to leave. And I wish you the best of luck in retirement. I hope you have as much fun as I've been having, even though I flunked retirement kind of. But it's a wonderful, it's the best job you'll probably ever have. And thanks, 25 plus years is awesome. And I want to thank you for what you've done for Pine County. We appreciate it. And I think somebody might have something to say other than me. Is that correct? You can come up here.
Sorry, I brought my phone because I thought we had a photo up with the clock. Good morning. I just want to say a few words about Judith Tingwell's career, and I'm going to try to turn and look at her as I'm trying to talk to her too. I am Michelle Girl. I'm the financial assistant supervisor here. So thank you for letting me speak this morning. Judith started her lifelong career as an eligibility worker with Pine County Health and Human Services 25 years ago on December 23rd, 1996. Judith was a graduate from the Pine Tech Human Services Eligibility Worker Program, which helped her prepare her for the hard work, dedication, and compassion needed to be successful in this new role. Judith, for the most of her career, has worked with the aged, blind, and disabled population. There was a time when she was already doing long-term care caseload for years, but then the state of Minnesota decided workers had to be required to do the long-term care new mandatory training that they came out with in order to keep their caseloads. Judith was one of the first 2 employees in Pine County who participated in approximately 80 to 100 online hours, plus another 35 hours of classroom training just to get certified. She did that training all while maintaining a full caseload and her normal job duties. That was a huge accomplishment for her. Judith works with some of the most vulnerable populations that we have in Pine County. She takes pride in that, and she understands the responsibility of her role to help people in our community. I am especially proud of Judith mentoring her team members because she has many, many years of experience and knowledge that is valuable to pass down to help her team members grow within their roles and to make sure that people in our community are always well taken care of. 25 years as an eligibility worker is truly inspiring to me. Judith, this is a career I hope that you can look back on with a smile on your face and know in your heart that you did it with integrity and honor. I found a quote by Fred Rogers that really stood out to me, and it goes, "Often you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else." I think those words ring true to you, new chapter that you are about to start. Your experience, knowledge, and presence will be missed, but I'm so excited for you and know that you will fully enjoy your retirement. From all of us in Income Maintenance, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. The population that you dealt with for all those years.
I love that.
Yeah, I know you did, but many of us don't do that, and it takes a special person. We appreciate what you
Thank
do.
you. Thank you very much.
And this would also be the time when you'd get your gold watch. That is in the form of a gold clock. But we had a supply issue problem.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think we could end the meeting right here.
No, Katie still wants to talk.
Do you?
Oh, no, it's your turn.
Thank you, Judith. We do truly, we appreciate all your co-workers also. But today we're recognizing your outstanding work, so thank you.
Thank you again, all of you.
We'll move on to the Personnel Committee report.
Want me to take it? Go ahead.
Yep.
We had our meeting on March 7th. So it was pretty quick, and I'll do the sheriff's office first and the jail. We acknowledge the retirement of jail programmer Brent Johns effective April 30th, 2022, and the request for backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. We acknowledge.
He's been there.
Huh?
Do you know how long he's been here?
About 38 years plus, I think.
A long time.
We acknowledge the resignation of Correction Officer Nicholas Marol effective February 23rd and request backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. We also acknowledge the resignation of Correction Officer Dwayne Begay effective March 13th, 2022, and the request to backfill the position and subsequent vacancies that may occur with due to internal promotion and lateral transfer. Do you want to take them all in one time at the end? Okay. Then the sheriff's office dispatch. We acknowledge the resignation of dispatcher Jenny McLean effective July 16th, 2022, and request backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotional lateral transfer. And the rest of the minutes are just general information on the meeting, but I will make a motion to approve those.
I'll second.
Thank you. Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Is there any discussion, questions?
I could just have a comment on this. The resignations in the jail that they're moving on. Just it's not a problem or anything like that. So closer to home for one, and one is becoming a law enforcement officer in the Dakota. So it's just the normal kind of attrition that happens when they move up. So
Thank you. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed?
Just before we move, I'm wondering, do you want to discuss at all the correction officer hiring event and some of the recruitment strategies that were discussed?
Yeah, we can. I think the first one had 6 or 9 or something, 6. And I don't know what happened at the second one, or that hasn't happened.
It did happen, and there were 2 folks. And so we ended up with a total of 8 applications for correction officers from those 2 events, which we did not know what to expect. But I know HR did give an update that they are really looking to kind of stretch the comfort zone of how we do recruitment and promotion of our open positions, because just waiting for someone to find us no longer works. And so.
Yeah. And I think we, in our discussion with it, that's not a bad turnout for the first time you try something. And I think word of mouth is gonna, the people will start talking. So I think we need to do another one at the, and I think our staff can handle that. We have that discussion. It's a commitment. But I think the sooner we have one, the better, I think, to hit it again, because why not try to recruit local if we can, And I think, I don't know how it's getting out to the population of those people, but our jail is more than happy to train them themselves from the beginning and get the product they want versus coming in from somewhere else, which I think is a good way to look at it. So.
And in addition to the recruitment events, we're also looking at participating in some regional job fairs to start to get our name and our positions better known and just out there.
I'm sorry I interrupted you there. But
Oh, no, that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thanks.
It was really successful.
I think we have to give our staff a lot of credit for doing it too, because it's
Yeah.
people, they put time in and visit with them and tell them what the job's like. So it's a good thing. And it's probably good for our staff too.
I think so. I like it. Introduction of Katie, is it Hagan? Hagan. Welcome.
Thank you. So I just want to give an introduction about myself and then like what I've been doing so far. So I am the ag extension educator for Pine and Isani County. I was hired 3 weeks ago. So, or not hired, but that's when I started. It's 3 weeks ago. So I actually grew up here in Pine County. I'm from Hinckley and I live there now still. I grew up on a beef farm and now I just have a hobby farm with my husband, and I have a son who's 14 months, and then I'm due in May as well. So that's just a little bit about me. I graduated from the University of Minnesota Crookston with my Bachelor of Science in Animal Science and Ag Business. And then I went on to the Twin Cities to get my master's in agricultural education. And so the last 5 years, I've actually been at Hinckley Florenson High School teaching agriculture. And then I just got this job. So it's been great so far. So far, I've done an March newsletter. My April one is coming soon. We've had our Pine and Isani crop update, which was Tuesday of last week. We had 30 people attend that in person, and that was wonderful. and a lot of great speakers. I've been attending different webinars, so learning myself on how extension educators are doing these webinars and getting the word out there for the different research that the university does. And then I've been attending a lot of meetings and greeting different people, learning people's names and how they can help me in my position. And lastly, I recorded my first broadcast at WCMP, and they aired that on Friday last week. So look forward to doing more of that.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, and thank you for introducing yourself.
Susanna, there's Suzanne. Okay.
Yep, Suzanne is on. Suzanne is my regional director.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and
Hi,
Commissioners.
Suzanne.
Hi,
Hi,
Suzanne.
I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm really excited that Katie's on board, and thank you, Katie, for that really great introduction. I would also just say, building on what you have had as kind of a theme for this meeting, just think we were able to recruit locally as well. And so that's really pleasing. So I'm glad about that. And just thanks a lot for the support that you have always shown in this position and how it's really growing. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Katie.
Suzanne. And
Welcome aboard.
just one more thing, Katie, we'd be happy to have you if you came from wherever, but we're proud of the fact that we know we raise really good kids, really smart kids. And to have them come back and be part of our team, we really enjoy that. And we know you'll do good things here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Terry. Presentation of out-of-home placement report.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Terry Fawcett, probation director. I'm not from here. Very
We
disappointed.
hold that against you every day.
No, annual report about the correctional or probation out-of-home placements. Before the meeting started, David had asked if I could explain, differentiate between the budgets and between HHS and probation. In a nutshell, all of the out-of-home placements are part of Becky's budget. There's a correctional section of that, correctional line items, and that's kind of what I'll speak to today. But Becky and I do get together once a year. We go over what we think is the best area to put monies in my line items, and it's a moving target, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through here. There's a lot to this slide. I'm just going to cover some of it, but when we make placement decisions in the upper left, we try to think of all these different variables, best interest of the child. We use a risk assessment instrument. So when a kid gets picked up the first time that they're in, when they come to court for the first time, there's a risk assessment that's done between the probation department, county attorney's office, and they take a look at the factors, the severity of the crime, the history of the kid, those type of things. It need to be in detention, locked up or not. And I'll get into that. You know, we've kind of learned through research over the years that most kids don't need to be locked up, that you can do a lot of good stuff in the communities. And unless you're really getting to impact the families, then, locking a kid up doesn't solve a whole lot of stuff. Placement reduction strategies on the upper right. We've got a whole host of them that we try to do here. A lot of them under our Project Rise umbrella. One of the things that's really kind of slipped the last year has been we had just started a new restorative justice program with the federal prison. COVID kind of put a stop to that. We're hoping Reese and I to have a meeting. They have a new warden, a new administration coming in, but we did check with their transition coordinator about a week ago, and they're hopeful that the federal stop on people going in and out of the prisons is going to be lifted here soon, and hopefully we can resume that work. Crossover youth has really work that's done between the probation department and social services. We've reached out to Stearns County, for example, does a really nice job with crossover youth. They've attended some Project Rise meetings, try to mentor us there. JDAI, our partnership with the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiatives, that's the DOC partnership. A couple commissioners are in on that JDI 101 training that they put on. There was 5 or 6 social workers that were in that as well. They're working with us actively about ways to strategize and even doing better crossover work and so forth. So that partnership with the DOC in terms of JDI has been great. 2021 budget for probation cases left lower. So the question was this overall dollar amount. So probation had about an allocation of about 361,000 last year. We spent 198,000 plus. Becky has a staff that goes after parental fees and did a really good job of that this last year. 12,000, almost $13,000 that parents actually kicked into out of home placement. That doesn't happen a lot. So that's really good work by her staff. So you can look at it as we are under budget by that amount. And then the box on the bottom is kind of where we are right now. Budget busters, kids that we've spent over $20,000 or more. And this one right here, I'll be careful on how I talk because give away who we're working with here. But if you look on the highlights and the commonality, that's kind of the most important part to me. Mental health diagnosis, family instability, inability to address issues, drug use, trauma, truancy, poor academic progress. That's in a nutshell with those 4. The top one's extremely difficult kid right now. Actually in a group home speak, and we don't really use group homes in correctional placements often. And he's been there quite a while and not sure how much longer he'll be there. But at any rate, it was interesting. I was listening to the radio a week ago and they were talking about this bill to pass for expanding gambling in Minnesota. And one of the proponents of it was talking about we're going to use that money to increase opportunities for kids in the community. We don't have enough places for kids to go play. You can always use places for kids to play, right? That being said, it's just not about, making a playground and expect that crime's going to stop because kids are going to play. I mean, that's politically a great thing to say. Ultimately, it goes back to this family instability. So when I just said a minute ago, we can lock a kid up, but if we're not doing great work with that family, you can have a kid in the best treatment facility in the state, then he's going to come back home into the same dysfunctional family, and then you just spent $150,000 and you question why you spent $150,000. So when we talk about the evening reporting center and some of those things that we do in Pine County a little bit differently than I think a lot of places in the state do, that's why we do that, because we've learned over time that the old way of doing things just didn't work. I've said this before, but especially for the 2 newer commissioners, when I was a juvenile supervisor in Duluth a number of years ago, PO would get mad at a kid on a Friday at 3 o'clock and lock him up at the Arrowhead Juvenile Center and then let him out at Monday at 8. Well, what did that do? Didn't do anything except the PO could sleep over the weekend, didn't have to worry about the kid being locked up. And that's how you dealt with kids 25, 30 years ago. So didn't have any impact on them, but that's the way it was. Then the bottom one, we talk about the top 3 placement used by Pine County. Placement are dwindling anyway. Woodland Hills just closed this last year. That was a huge setback in our state, not only for corrections, but they had just started a new mental health facility in East Bethel. That went under. And so we used where we contract with East Central Regional Juvenile Center and Anoka County Non-Secure and Village Ranch for some kids. And that's about it. And there's really not a whole lot of other options out there either, unless you start talking about crime specific places for sex offenders and that type of thing, but, which are even more expensive. All right. The annual juvenile placements, if you look at in 2021, we placed 56 kids, 56 placements, 25 kids in those placements, average length of placement 29. So the average that is the lowest since we started tracking this data in 1996, attributed to fewer juveniles in long-term residential program, the use of that RAY risk assessment. We use a lot of home monitoring, electronic monitoring, and then community-based interventions such as the evening reporting center. In 2021, we had 730 placement days. If you look back in 2001, there were 7,500 placement days. So you're looking in, 20 years, 90% reduction in placement. So I like to read that sentence because sometimes, my agents or myself, sometimes you wonder if you're moving the needle and you go back and you're reminded that maybe you are moving the needle a little bit. Placement types, you see in the upper left, 2020, largely DOC non-secure. And then 2021, we've used some more secure placement, but that can be a little bit misleading. It's not like we're placing more kids there. And when they do go to the juvenile center, they're usually in and out quickly in a matter of days. But when you have one or two significant kids like we've seen on the budget busters, then they ended up staying in secure detention a lot longer. And that's kind of why that pie looks like that. Yes.
Can we go back just, the budget buster thing?
Yep.
The top kid was 45,000 or whatever. And I remember that number being way higher 10 years ago. Our top kid 10 years ago, I remember one was 67,000 and now we're 10 years of inflation and we're less than that. Are we changing our standards or are we doing a much better job of figuring out what we can do better with that kid? Or is it just different kids? Or is there no good answer?
That's a good question. I'll let Becky answer that one.
Doing it different for sure.
Pardon me?
We're doing it different for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. That's a unique case. Just a lot of different variables with that kid. Some pretty significant stuff. And it's just, I would say this, there's a really good level of wraparound work being done with him. We're not dropping standards by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think you are.
He's in the type of facility that is most appropriate. And those things get discussed. We have pre-placement screening team on Mondays and there's social workers in there and POs and other folks that kind of collectively come to some consensus on what that recommendation should be to the court. And I just told Kevin Glass yesterday that I wanted that one reviewed in a week and see where things are at with them. But, give me a true blue delinquent any day of the week. I'm more qualified to probably speak to them. But when you have all these other ones with these different variables, they're just different. They're just difficult to deal with. And and HHS, I think, finds the same thing. It's not for a lack of trying. It's for lack of resources, I think, in some places like the East Bethel facility. There's just not those type of facilities in the state to deal with kids with significant mental health issues. And so what do? You don't want to send a kid. So that type of kid would be very inappropriate to just sit down at the East Central Regional Juvenile Center and check a box that you got him in some type of treatment and expect that he's going to come out any different. So you have to go to different lengths to try what would be the most appropriate for that kid. And it's a moving target for sure, but that's why we have different people working together. A PO might see a certain thing. Social worker sees it differently. Social workers know about different resources that POs don't know of. They know about their limitations and what they can do in their system. POs have limitations in their system. And that's where that, cross communication and collaboration is so important because you need that, because I know when I'm working with habitual truants and I've had to send a few of them out of home for evaluations or whatever. If it's not a social worker sitting at that table helping guide me with some of those recommendations, I'm not going to have the best recommendation. I just don't know. I don't know that system well enough. So did I answer it or did I hide from it as best I could?
100 variables with no kids the same.
Yeah. Placement expenditure. So this is so we went up a little bit from 2020 being the COVID year. Here's our juvenile center one. So we talked about this when we did our juvenile center one, but two counties that were used to be members have now have rejoined the joint powers agreement, so Stearns and Benton County. So that's good for the overall lasting partnership with the juvenile center is to have more members there. So we used 356 bed days last year. So you look at it as a contract for one bed, underutilized at 9 days. That billing process is different now, as we know. And so now we get a bill every month. So I sent it to Becky, and then so Becky's talked to me since then, and we'll probably look at moving that line item over to probation next year like we did this year for electronic monitoring, rather than sending the monitoring. We're doing the work. We might as well just pay that monitoring bill, not have to send that to Becky's staff. Probably do the same with the East Central Regional Juvenile Center next year, because the billing is different than it used to be, rather than that balloon payment at the end of the year.
So can you take a question there?
Yeah.
Or maybe not a question, but I know we're trying to figure out, is it better to buy ahead and hold the bed or pay as you go, right? But I know from my experience in the past that it can blow up one day and then you're gonna be money ahead if you have the bed. So my question is, how close should we be monitoring that, without? Is it a decision we should be making every year? Like, I think we will be making every year, but
No
what's the
question.
number where we say, and I know I don't expect you to give me that number. I'm just saying we need to think about what's the number where we say we pay as we go versus pay for the bed. And I don't know that number right now, because it's so fluid.
But as you know, we get a report from them every month. I forward that to the agents. I forward you that. I look at that every month, but I do, yes, to answer your question, I think the board should look at that
I think, yeah.
an annual basis to see where those trends are. And that's kind of why we track some of this data too,
I know.
to look where those trends are. I'm not opposed to paying as you go. Number one on the budget buster would be one of the reasons why you don't, because he come out of nowhere. He'd never been in justice involved.
Okay.
Now he's 17-ish or whatever. And now you have this issue, you can't control that. And so as we know, those disappear once in a while. And what do? Do I think that there's a better opportunity to get a bed now? It used to be where you have to be a member or you're not going to be able to place a kid, and a deputy might have to drive to Duluth or Bemidji. I don't think that's the case now, but I will say this: secure detention facilities are also dwindling in the state. And so the East Central Regional Juvenile Center is an extremely popular option statewide, where there's like Mower County down in Austin. We tried to recruit them this year. They send a ton of kids up there.
Well,
So you are competing with
Yeah.
all areas of the state.
and we're running out of facilities to put them. Yeah, I think the way you guys are approaching it with not labeling that first offense kid is changing the impact on beds we use too. Like you mentioned earlier, we don't just lock them up right away.
Well, and what we call evidence-based practices guides that too. Other counties are what I'd say they're smart as well. That's why the program manager of the juvenile center would tell you that their average days in placement and detention are very small now. Kid used to sit longer. Now it's usually in most cases, you're down there until your first appearance, and then counties are popping the kid out. There's always.
Yeah, I just think that with everything happening with Project Ride, all that is having an impact on this. So.
Well, we'd like to think so, it's.
Yeah, and I since the work all of you folks have been doing, if you just look at this graph and you take the left side versus the right side, you saved about half the dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced the kids are turning out, we're doing better work now.
Well, I say it all the time, right? If you want to see a kid really change, make them a little bit uncomfortable and make them work on themselves, right? Rather than stand in front of a judge and have a judge order 5 conditions that a justice-involved kid can stand on their head and do, make them sit across from an elder, or make them sit across from, a community member, and actually have to talk about the crime and how it impacted the community. And now you start to see kids change a little bit. So it's more work, right? but the results are better.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago where the Budget Busters was double that, right? I mean,
Easily.
am I thinking that wrong? But I was actually quite surprised at this. So,
Yeah, well, it was just 3 years ago, we had 3 kids that were EJJ, very significant crimes in the county, and there's nothing you can do about that, and
I appreciate what you've been doing.
Yeah.
well, thank you. So on this one, these are just bed days used. It's the 98 to 2001. So obviously 57 in 2020, that's a COVID year, a little misleading. And again, 356 last year. But that bottom line, use of the risk assessment tool, electronic monitoring and non-secure detention, helps reduce over-reliance on secure detention. I said this before to Commissioner Ludwig, if somebody wanted to really do something well in the corrections world, they would develop more non-secure detention placements. That's what the system needs. That's what the system doesn't have in the state of Minnesota. So those are extremely popular beds down there. The only reason we can get a kid in non-secure detention sometimes is because we're a joint powers member. If we were in a joint powers member, we'd never get a kid in that program. So again, community alternatives. This is our electronic monitoring. So we had 13 kids on a monitor last year for 432 days. Actually increased amount of days on a monitor, but we went down from 34 kids in 2020 to 13 kids this last year. So that kind of gives you a good example of the reliance that we use on electronic monitoring. And the juveniles are usually on the GPS monitor as well. And the cost savings, so it cost $4,800 in electronic monitoring costs last year, but we saved $106,000 if that kid was to be placed at 260 a day or whatever in placement. So kind of how we look at that. Our email reporting center, referral sources, 69% by probation, 25% children's mental health, 6% by child welfare. Primary reasons, mostly behavior, but now I send some habitual truants there as well. And then some of them we get sent there for more support. School can refer to the Even Reporting Center as well. We just now recently started a vaping program where the schools, all 4 school districts can refer there, and we have a vaping track. So now kids and families can get vaping education, because it was the schools, or at least 2 of them in particular, were getting overrun with vapors. And so this was a kind of a better way. We said, yeah, we'll take those kids on here and get them some programming and families some programming. And rather than send a bunch of vapors to the county attorney's office, which doesn't do anybody a whole lot of good. And so.
How do you staff that?
Pardon me?
How do you staff that?
Even Reporting Center?
Yeah.
We have two staff that are funded by the grant. One of them's the director and the other one's a youth counselor. And then we have community people that come in. We have guest speakers. We have line items for speakers that come in there as well. And then probation officers occasionally will go through there as well. So, but yeah, 2 staff.
Thanks.
It's exciting that you added something for vaping, because we talked at Chemical Health last night too, and they were saying that it's getting to be a big problem down in Hinckley. Hinckley was there yesterday.
Yeah. Andy Almost from East Central reached out and had asked. And so we had several meetings with him, and then we had some proposed language and then ran it by Sydney Silko from the county attorney's office. And, which kids can be referred right to the program from the school until they get to have to go to the county attorney's office. And then Sydney would then refer them to me, and then I would deal with them because I deal with our diversion kids. I haven't had any kids that have made it through the county attorney's office since we started out. I think we have 2 or 3 that are in the program, but they've been referred right from the school. So, but that's a better model too, right? I mean, it's this pre-charge diversion, which is a lot of what we do with our restorative justice work. Again, what's the goal? To keep the kid from being justice involved, because we know statistically, once a kid's justice involved, it's more difficult to get them out of the system. So,
Thank you for doing that.
Here's some early referral outcomes for the ERC. I'll start in the bottom bullet item, but just so Commissioner Helen asked this question a few times. And so when I do my comp plan presentation in a few months, these are some of the things that are going to be reported out. Number and demographic information of the youth served, completion data, reoffense or recidivism, school behavior, school attendance, school performance, protective factors, and youth survey information. So it's a lot to chew off, but again, our whole goal is, let's just not run this fun program because we got funding. Let's figure out if it's really working. Is it impacting? We anecdotally believe it is, but we'll be able to measure this more here in a few months. But we've had 32 referrals so far. 13 have completed, 4 are pending intake, 4 currently in the program. Only 1 discharge due to behavior. 2 went because they went to other programs, and then 8 for whatever reason referrals end up getting withdrawn. But this program was refunded, so we have it through September of 2023 right now. So that's good. And we are thinking about, there's transportation we pay for as part of that, and it goes through 4.0, and it's not cheap to use 4.0 for that. But Andy reached out to 4.0 and said, do you have a van that, when these kids got to go, when they're going to go do some pro-social event or whatever, that we don't always have to go through 4.0, that the staff at the ERC can use the van. And we have that relationship now set up with 4.0. So now we have staff that can go get a van. And so that's a huge win for us. So we'll be able to do, now that kind of hopefully get on the other side of COVID, we'll be able to get out and do a lot of pro-social events for these kids because, bottom line is a lot of these kids have just never been exposed to some of those good things in life, right? And so the more you kind of introduce them to the changing gates in the world and some of these places that do good work, the better chance you'll have. And in our community alternative budget, we allocate $14,000 in this line item. We've used it for transportation for kids and before rec activities, changing gates, incentives. There's a lot of research behind incentives. It's not just, don't just consequence a kid, build an incentive for them on why they should be successful. One of the things I'm doing now with probably 3 of my habitual truants is paying for driver's ed. So this kid is making progress academically, pay for driver's ed for you. So, and I'm on my POs all the time about this, about make sure that you're thinking about creative ways, ask that kid what they want, and then measure it, when they meet a goal, let's reward them and then set another goal. So, but this sounds really simple. This is what some of the most proud work I think in our department or in our county, I should say, is a lot of counties in this state do not have this. They just don't do this. It's all about the punitive side of things. And this is hopefully what I like to think of Pine County, looking at the glass, half full than half empty, and allowing these opportunities to exist for kids to do something. So hopefully help them out. So
I will say that after one of the conferences when you spoke, saying, why aren't we doing this? We need to look. It's a big part of our budget and look at how much we can save if we do this. So yeah, just getting the word out there and keeping it up, it's going to help a lot of kids and families.
and I appreciate that. And, along those lines, one of the commissioners that was down at that presentation was from Otter Tail County. I went out to the APPA conference in Atlanta a few months ago. Guess who presented at the national conference? Otter Tail County. They consulted with us 2 years ago. Now they're giving national presentations. Reese and I just consulted with Ramsey County a month ago, or a few weeks ago. What does Ramsey County want to do? They want to start a restorative justice program for car thefts. Not the carjackers, but the kids that are probably going to grow up to be carjackers if they don't. So they've identified about 20 kids that they want to try something different on. And I told her, I said, what is usually the rebuttal to the good work Pine County does, right? Well, you're just a small county. It's pretty simple, right? You can't do this in these big counties. Well, now you have Ramsey County that wants to jump in and do that level of work in that size of a county. That's when I think Reese's leadership and the work that's being done through Project Rise is making a difference, because now you're getting some of those big metro counties that are taking notice of the work. So that's all I have. Any other questions?
No, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Say this, Terry's comments. Even if you don't believe in the kind of the soft skills, kids are. The money side of it seems to attract even those people that don't really believe in that you can change a kid. But you know, we're seeing some results there on the budget side too.
You know, the C5 program obviously is near and dear to me for a lot of reasons. And one of them is because I run those meetings, right, with the kids. And so if a kid fails, like we just had a kid fail in that program, reoffended in a school and assaulted a principal. And, you know, that hurts me here because I'm doing that work with them. But 5 years from now, if we're running that data and more kids are failing than not, you should either fire Fawcett or we shouldn't do that program anymore. I mean, don't mark down that first part. I was kidding. But, you know what I mean? And so that's why with this type of data collection, and I thank Terrell, my predecessor, for that. This is really Terrell's template, and it's important to measure at this level because, you know, and Reese has got it in one of our PowerPoints, right? The old Einstein saying, how's it go, Reese? To do something over and over again and expect different results.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on, Reese. I just did that to see if counselor was paying attention.
I do want to say though that young person, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but that just failed out of the class. When he comes back and he looks at you, it's going to be humbling for him, and you are making changes. And so even though you don't live in Pine County, you sure spend a lot of time here. We appreciate you.
Get it? That one's a she, but
yeah, it is. It's humbling to have to come back and face you and say, I did wrong, because a lot of people really don't care, but you care. It does make a difference.
yeah, but you know, and the only thing,
He's got a quote.
oh, here we go. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. There you go. I must have been the one that put that in that PowerPoint. But no, you know, but again, her in a nutshell, she's a good kid, but guess what? She had a very difficult family life, you know, and so like we've talked about this before, it's just not my work. It's, you know, I'm going to Pine City today meeting with some counselors and social workers wrapping around a family. I have the girl on for habitual truancy. There's other family members on with different people, and we're going to meet today. Mom's already pulled out of the meeting, but we're going to meet and talk about how we better can work together to impact his family, because you know, takes us all. So I appreciate the support from the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Terry.
Community Development Block Grant. Architectural proposal.
Leslie is online. and is gonna
Okay.
Take that.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Leslie Stoddard, your Economic Development Coordinator. As you recall, quite a few months ago, the county was awarded a little over $3 million, almost $4 million from the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program. And part of that grant was for broadband, and the other part was to rehab the homeless shelter in Pine City. So we have kind of gone through the RFP process looking for architectural services because, to be honest, in order to bid out the project, we have to have some project plans designed by a licensed professional in order to obtain a building permit. So we put that RFP out, reviewed the proposals, and the executive director of the shelter and I looked them over and feel that the LHB proposal is best, more comprehensive. It is more expensive than the other one, but we did get, as part of our grant award, some administrative funds to hire people to help us with the grants. So that it'll purely come out of the grant award But we're
See what it looks like.
into the contract.
I was looking at these numbers yesterday. To me, it's just crazy that the design and construction documents are 62,000, but the construction's only 17. Does that seem kind of,
Yeah, that's the construction management.
oh,
So
okay,
the project, the actual construction cost is about $500,000, Leslie, is that, the construction cost?
okay.
Our grant award budget is 525,000. So that's what we're hoping all of the projects of these will cost for construction. They would oversee the construction. So if the general has an issue and they're working and they need to revise the plans, then this architectural firm can revise them, get them approved by the building official so that they can be inspected and approved.
Nice.
We need a motion to go ahead with this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore, to go ahead with the proposal. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you, Leslie.
thanks,
Thank you.
Leslie. We'll move ahead with scheduling some special meetings. We have a meeting that we'd like to schedule the 23rd with the Educational Collaborative. And a special meeting, Committee of the Whole for April 12th. And a special meeting for the road tour on May 10th. Anybody have any issues with this? Okay. Do we need a motion, David? Or
If you wanted to make a motion, you can do that. I would just add a note on the April 12th meeting. We had originally contemplated that the University of Minnesota Extension Services would be there for some updates and then to talk about their ARPA program. That date does not work any longer for Suzanne and Jan. So that is probably going to take place at one of the regular board meetings in May. We have added pretrial supervision from probation, so a little more depth on some of the stuff Terry was talking about today. And then we have also scheduled East Central Energy to do a broadband update to the county commissioners.
See, we're not getting paid what.
And so we have those three meetings, which are pretty well date, time, and subject set. And then we've talked about doing restarting that local government officials meeting. And so I don't have a proposed date for that, but if we wanted to pick a date, maybe in May-ish for that worked for folks, we could get that on the calendar.
No, that one is the one we meet with the townships and
And
stuff.
the cities, yes.
let's mull that one over. But I would look for a motion to approve these other meeting dates.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion by Moore, second by Lovegren. Any more discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioner updates, legislative conference.
I did. So it was really interesting. We were very blessed. We got to talk to both Jason and to Nathan, and we had Nathan all to ourselves because we grabbed him out of another meeting. So it worked out really well. We were able to talk to them about the probation fees were brought up, and I think it was Jason that said, "Are you bringing that up for Steve because he's not here today?" So yeah, it was very good. And then I went to the human service meeting on that, and they just talked about what had already passed, which was things that we've talked about at like the last 3 meetings, with the importance of working with mental health and the other issues that were coming up. I thought I had my notes on it and I don't. It was good to be able to thank Jason for authoring the bill for our child out of home placement. So it was fun to be able to not just go there and ask for things, but to thank them for what they're doing.
Any talk about CWD?
No,
Okay,
JJ was there too.
Yeah, I went to the public safety and Dakota County spoke of their challenges they've had with their jail and the things that they have to do to, same thing that we're going through. Turned out they hired the same firm that we did.
EKB or something like that.
Yeah, yep, and they had really good things to say about them. And then one thing that I thought was really interesting they did too, it has nothing to do with the beds and the segregation and everything, but just the cost, it's, it's 240, I believe they said $240 to bed an inmate. And they had one person there that the only reason they were there is because they had $100 bail they couldn't make. So, I mean, that's a bigger,
How much does it cost to house them per day?
$240 a day.
For $100 bail.
Yeah, if they would have had $100 bail, they wouldn't even have been there. And of course, I would think with $100 bail, the crime can't be nothing that serious. I mean, to where you're worried about them,
Oh,
So I guess, how do you deal with that? Create this, you build the add-on.
I think our judicial system in the 10th district is better than that, isn't it, Reese, for the most part?
They wouldn't give somebody $100 bail up here. It doesn't make sense because you need.
Gotta be some kind of backstory to that.
Yeah,
The sheriff was there and their jail person. And they even made a comment that, we've even thought of paying it,
Yeah.
just to, but they didn't, so I don't. And then they also commented on, it's in the same public safety that I went to. The majority of their inmates are not even from their county. So they were trying to figure out a way of, it's more of a state issue. To maybe get that state money to help them at the county level because they're housing people that aren't even, they're citizens, so to speak. So.
But see, they have to have their staff there no matter what, if it's empty.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, DOC says if you have this many beds, you have to have this much staff.
Yeah, you never know when something's gonna happen, I guess.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So
Thank you both for.
Yeah, thanks for going.
Appreciate that. Thank you, David, for being there. Central Minnesota Council on Aging. We had a meeting in it. Just a couple of numbers that we got is the funding. The funding, we don't have a formula that says you've got 6% of the over 60 population in Pine County, therefore we're gonna send you a check for this much money. But the staff they're always aware of that. And sometimes we might have a little bit more usage and sometimes less. But we have 6% of the over 60 population of the 14 counties in central Minnesota. So that's a big number, but we have this past year spent 8% of the funds that are expended by the organization. So I think that's a little bit better than average. Some years we might be a little bit less, but we've been trending that way. I think because of what it costs for home delivered meals and stuff in the Pine counties of the world, we're always going to tend to spend a little bit more money than, say, if you're in St. Cloud and people can go to the Whitney Center, or you can deliver meals within a very small area, So I just thought that was interesting. Congregate dining, we think of the senior centers and people going there and eating a meal. That really has trended down in recent years, and especially in COVID, it went way down.
Did they even do it during COVID?
Huh?
Did they even do it? They didn't have it during COVID.
No, in a lot of places, they weren't even available.
Yeah.
But what they found is some of the most vulnerable people that really need the nutrition piece were still being served because some smart person, was actually a person for Catholic Charities, said, we've got these meals at our congregate site that don't get eaten. So they got some nice little things that we all have done for our mothers and fathers, where we make a pack up, of 2 weeks worth of meals. We put them in the freezer. Okay, mom, you take that out on Tuesday and you put it in the microwave for a minute and a half, and you got a nice warm meal. They have done that, and they've been extremely popular. So you can go pick up a week's or 2 weeks worth of meals for your mom or dad and take them home and give your folks instructions, or have a neighbor come over and help them warm those meals up. And their nutrition needs have really been met. So it's a pretty cool program, and it was just, I love those things that get started by somebody that just happened to be in the kitchen in St. Cloud and said, hey, we can do better. We did this for my mom. We can do this for a lot of people. So, and it worked. Soil and water.
Okay, I got the minutes here, draft of them anyway. I attended electronically. Business as usual, nothing really jumped out that I thought would be of any use to us this month at least. And I do have minutes in case anybody wants to just look at everything else. So
Thanks for going there, Judy.
yeah.
Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. I find out all the time that Pine County isn't a whole lot different than the rest of the counties. And we're looking for jailers. Everybody's looking for jailers. So I think what we're doing with our HR people, reaching out, and we're ahead of the game. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, David, most of our jailers they're not coming from Maine or New Hampshire or Scott County. They're mostly coming from Pine, Burnett, Connecticut County. They're coming from this area. So I think we're on the right track. We're reaching out to our local people and trying to get them started down a career path. So, and I think we're way ahead of the game with our job skills training that we've done with Plain Tech. There's a worker shortage, and there's going to be for a while. And so unemployment rates are way down. We can argue till we're blue in the face why that is, but the fact of the matter is there's unemployment is not at 7 or 8%. It's at 2.9 in central Minnesota.
So when I was at the chemical or the health committee meeting, Jen Malcolm was saying that one of the books that they're reading through the state right now is called Subtract. And I thought of you, Josh, but she said, I would recommend that everybody read this. She said, it's a book on how to deal with less employees because we're going to have a problem. So that was one of the things that, she held it up and just said, I suggest that you all take a look at this because it's affecting all of us.
Like that lady said it last fall at AMC, that this thing started 25 years ago.
Yeah.
When we didn't make enough babies. Some things stick with you.
It's too late now. No.
East Central Solid Waste, we're looking for an assistant director. So if somebody knows somebody with a back.
New Packer?
We got it ordered. It'll be delivered in
Couple of years.
May, I think. Apparently it's in the United States. And they have, yeah. So anyway, I think the assistant director position, we're gonna interview after our next meeting in April. So it's still open if you know somebody with any kind of a background in management and earth movement and landfill operations. But I think really we need somebody that can manage people and money.
Is it a full-time job?
Yeah. Library board.
There was a lot of discussion about when Mille Lacs didn't have the money to pay for their full amount, they closed the Onamia public library there. And it was just I think it was open maybe 4 days a week. It wasn't a lot. It was just a very part-time, but the people in Nonami are really having a hard time with that closing because now they need to drive 10 miles to go to a library. And I thought of our county and how many people drive 30 miles to get to a library.
Right.
So, but that was the big thing that with the shortfall for Mille Lacs County that they ended up doing was closing Nonamia. And then our public library ranked second place within the nation on the Beanbag Reading Program. And so we received 2 backpacks. They're from NASA, and they'll have the telescope and then like star placements and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be going to the libraries where you can check it out. Your kids would like that now that you have a big yard with the sky. Yeah. So it'll be fun when that comes out and we'll be able to see more of what's coming from NASA.
Cool. Chemical health.
I'll start. We did talk about vaping and vaping is really a big thing right now. And so I know that Hinckley Finlayson reached out and they're going to work with Haley to see if they can get some information to help with that. And they've got prom coming up at Hinckley Finlayson and they were asking for t-shirts for Positive Jags, which is doing a really good job working with the kids and helping them to stay positive and all of that kind of fun stuff. One of the cool things is that they're in Pine City, they're opening an adult drop-in center for people who are dealing with mental health. I didn't know about this, but it just sounds like a really nice place to go. It's going to be at the Senior Citizen Center starting on Tuesday, which is today. And they can go there, they can visit, they can play games, they can just have a positive place to go. And so that was really exciting to hear that. And then there's a drug-free grant that Brian had brought up. And Hinckley Finlayson was interested in that. And so they're going to be working with Brian to see if they can get that grant, which it sounds like it would be a really good thing.
I have 2 others.
Yeah, okay.
First one is, y'all got the flyer there on your, it's the foster parent support group that's gonna kick off on Monday, April 14th here in Pine County. Is this just a social worker driving this, Becky, or is that a group? I just.
Child protection social worker intern, and she's working with the license.
Oh. Okay, well, I think this is a great program because, you know, when I was still working, we had a lot of interaction with foster parents as deputies because things, you know, and they could use some support once in a while. And they do a good job for our kids, you know, that end up there. And I think this is a wonderful thing.
You have 37 foster.
37 families, foster care, 37 foster caregivers. Yeah.
Are we still in need of more?
Yeah.
I'd heard that we were, so that, I mean, that's a lot of foster families.
I feel like I'm yelling from the gallery and I don't know how appropriate that is. Becky Foss, Director of Pine County Health and Human Services. We do have 37 foster homes right now in Pine County who are either fully licensed or going through the licensing process. So sometimes when you're going through the licensing process, you may have some relatives already with you and you're going through the emergency process, which is a really fast track to get you licensed. You can take care of your nieces, nephews, what have you. But 37 is a good number, but we're always looking for more. We have really some tough kiddos that go into placement, whether it's a baby leaving the hospital who's been exposed to drugs in utero, or whether it's a 15-year-old who's just really coming from a rough family situation. So always looking for more. And they do a great job in Pine County. Our foster homes are amazing. We owe them this. This will be a good thing for them.
Thank you.
And I have one more on we had our Kettle River One Watershed One Plan and Upper St. Croix. We hired our planning facilitator, HEI. And that's the same one that we used in Namachi. So it's going to be nice because they tie in on that north end. So we spent that money. They're on board and then we're still in the planning on the kickoff and get it rolling. So it's a pretty quick meeting, but just for update everybody, the Pine SWCD is going to be the main, and it's a big chunk of turf.
Right.
That's pretty much all of Pine County, the St. Croix watershed, the Kettle River watershed, and Carlton County, up by Cromwell, so it starts.
Is it just Pine and Carlton in the Kettle River watershed?
And yeah, well, and Knavik has a little piece in there,
Okay,
but they're not sending in one yet because it's such a small piece, but they're getting all the. We're still sending them all the stuff so they can join it in time. We'll let that happen, you know. So it's moving on. It's gonna be a big project. And then, of course, we're the fiscal host, you know, for that one, so. And Pine SWCD is gonna be the primary
that's a big job. I mean,
job.
looking at a lot of,
Paul is doing a good job there. Paul Swanson.
any other updates?
I have two, but
Yep.
on Matt's real quick. We had a big discussion at the Snake Water River or Watershed about the reconstructive for some lakeshore properties, whether they should use the rocks. I can't think what it's called.
Riprap.
Riprap, thank you, or if they should use the logs. And because that's that ended up being a really big thing because people that have used the logs don't want to use them and people that have used riprap said that that was bad too. So they're doing a class, I think it's next week, where a specialist is coming in to talk about the difference on that. If any of you guys want to attend that, it's virtual. So I think I can send it to you and you can just send it out and it wouldn't matter. But I mean, if everybody's working on river or watersheds, it would be kind of good to know just for the future what's coming with that. I attended a NACO, it was an update on federal, I can't even say the word package. And I just want to bring up the one thing that happened on this that really kind of blew me away. I just felt like I should go to that meeting and I don't know why, but they were talking the second half of our ARPA money that comes on May 10th. They're talking, the federal government had it on a bill to pull that from us or pull at least a portion of it from us because they wanted to do a $15.1 million, I think it was, or a $15 billion package for COVID relief again. And so the way that they were going to pay for that was to take ARPA money from the states, from the counties, the territories, and the tribes. So they said it got pulled at the last minute. It was kind of, but they said, watch out because they have until May 10th to do it.
Yeah, reach back and grab some.
Yeah. So they said, keep your eye on it because there's a good chance that they're going to come back and try to take some of that money. And then he did say, get it spoken for, which I think we have. But if they pull it before that, I don't know if that's going to benefit us or not. I don't know, but that really surprised me that they would even consider doing that. The other meeting that I had was SHAC. And the big thing with SHAC is that they're trying to figure out how to reshape public health. Becky, have you been in on any of these conversations with them? Okay, with public health, though, what they're trying to reconstruct it because it's changing so much.
Is that what the infrastructure grants are for? Is that what?
No, that was some money that came through from the federal government, yeah. And they did talk about that too, and they had more applicants than they had for the grant so they were really excited about that to be able to figure it out. But they're trying to figure out how to move forward and work with what we have for human services now or for public health with the shortage of employees and just the changes in what's happening. So that's still moving forward. I think it's called Public Health 3.0. So, yeah. That's it.
All right. We got several meetings coming up. Make sure you take Debbie, the technology committee is not going to meet on the 22nd. If you got something that needs, Brian.
I'm gonna try to get back from Wednesday so I can do Arrowhead.
Okay.
Try to make it back for that one.
Any other business? If not, we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Well,
Thanks, Steve. Want that place for you, please?
So different.